The sound that changed everything wasn't the shout or the slam of a car door. It was a thin, broken cry that slipped through the noise of a busy parking lot and begged the world not to look away. People were loading groceries, checking phones, rushing through their lives, when that cry cut across the afternoon like a fault line. It came from a woman crouched beside a dented sedan, one arm wrapped around her ribs, the other raised in a quiet, instinctive shield. Her name didn't matter in that moment. What mattered was that she was alone and she was afraid. She hadn't planned to be there. She had planned a simple errand: bread, milk, maybe flowers, because she still believed small gestures could soften hard days. The argument had started in the car, words sharp enough to bruise, even before hands followed. She told herself the same things she always did. Keep your voice low. Don't provoke. It will pass. It never passed the way she hoped. When the door flew open and she stumbled onto the asphalt, the sky felt too big and the ground too unforgiving. She wished someone would see her as a person and not a problem, as someone worth stepping toward. Most people didn't. Some slowed, eyes flicking away. Others pretended to rummage in trunks or adjust mirrors, convincing themselves that it wasn't their business. Fear is contagious, and so is silence. The man stood over her, breathing hard, his anger loud and messy. He believed the space belonged to him, that the rules bent for him. He believed no one would interfere. At the far edge of the lot, a man paused mid-step. He had been walking with a German shepherd at his side, the dog's leash slack, their movements practiced and calm. The man was tall without trying to be, shoulders squared in a way that suggested a lifetime of standing ready. He wore jeans and a plain jacket, nothing that announced who he was or what he had done with his life. The dog, sable-coated and alert, lifted his head, ears pricked, eyes fixed on the sound that didn't belong. The man didn't rush. He breathed once, deeply, the way he had learned to do when seconds mattered. He scanned the scene, reading body language the way others read signs. He noticed the woman's posture, the way her eyes searched the ground, the way the man's stance crowded her space. He noticed the bystanders, the gap of hesitation that could swallow someone whole. He tightened his grip on the leash, not as a threat, but as a promise of control. He had stepped into harder places than this: dusty villages at dawn, narrow corridors where echoes lied, nights where fear tried to masquerade as courage. But what pulled him forward now wasn't training or adrenaline. It was something quieter and older, the refusal to let a cry disappear unanswered. "Sir," he said, his voice level, carrying without shouting. "That's enough." The words landed like a hand on a shoulder. The man turned, surprised, anger scrambling for a new target. He saw a stranger and a dog. He did not see the years of discipline behind the stranger's eyes, or the countless hours of partnership behind the dog's calm. He laughed, dismissive, because dismissing is easier than reconsidering. "Mind your business," he snapped. The German shepherd shifted, placing his body between the woman and the man without being told. A living wall of muscle and focus. The leash remained loose. The dog's presence was not a snarl or a bark, but a certainty. He had been trained to read fear and not add to it, to protect without escalating. His handler trusted him the way you trust gravity. "This is my business," the man replied, still calm, everyone's business. Around them, something changed. A woman paused with her cart. A teenager lowered his phone. A man by a pickup truck took a step closer. Courage, when it appears, has a way of making room for more of itself. The aggressor's bravado faltered. He glanced around, recalculating. The parking lot that had felt empty now felt watched. Authority had entered the space, not through a badge or a siren, but through presence. The man with the dog didn't threaten. He didn't insult. He stood, grounded, giving the aggressor a choice that saved face while ending harm. "Back away," he said. "Now." The man cursed under his breath and took a step back. Then another. The woman's breath came in shallow bursts, each one a small victory. She hadn't realized how tightly she'd been holding herself together until the pressure eased. The German Shepherd glanced back at her, amber eyes softening, and she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Seen. Someone had already called for help. The sound of sirens approached, faint but growing. The man with the dog didn't move until he was sure the distance held. He knelt beside the woman, careful not to crowd her, offering a jacket, his hands visible and steady. "You're safe," he said, not as a promise of the future, but as a truth of the present moment. "Help's on the way." She nodded, tears spilling now that her body allowed them. She didn't tell her whole story. She didn't have to. Trauma is efficient. It speaks in fragments. He listened to what she did say and to what she couldn't. When the police arrived, the scene shifted again. Statements were taken. The man was separated, his anger boxed by procedure. The woman was guided to an ambulance, her injuries checked by gentle hands. Through it all, the German Shepherd stayed close, his presence grounding. When she reached out without thinking, her fingers brushed his fur, and he leaned into her touch like he'd been waiting for permission. Later, when the adrenaline drained and the parking lot returned to its ordinary rhythm, the man with the dog stood apart, answering questions he didn't mind answering and deflecting praise he didn't seek. He gave his name, nothing more. He declined interviews. He clipped the leash and prepared to leave. "Wait," the woman said, her voice steadier now. She stood wrapped in a blanket, cheeks flushed with life returning. "I didn't even thank you." He smiled, small and human. "You don't owe me anything." She shook her head. "You stepped in when no one else did." He looked around, at the people who had stayed this time, who were still nearby, watching with different eyes. "Others will too," he said. "Sometimes they just need someone to go first." As he walked away, the German Shepherd trotting at his side, the woman felt a door open inside her. Not a door to instant healing, she knew better than that, but a door to possibility. If someone could see her worth in the middle of a parking lot, maybe she could learn to see it too. Maybe the world was not as indifferent as she had believed. In the days that followed, the story traveled in the way stories do now, shared and reshaped. Some focused on the man's past, labeling him a hero because he had once worn a uniform and survived places most people only see on screens. Others focused on the dog, on loyalty and training and the romance of protection. Fewer talked about the woman, about how ordinary courage begins with asking for help and accepting it. She returned to that parking lot weeks later, not because she needed to, but because she wanted to. She stood where she had fallen and noticed details she had missed before. A crack in the asphalt like a lightning bolt. A tree at the edge that dropped shade just so. She breathed without counting, her chest rising freely. Healing, she learned, wasn't about forgetting. It was about reclaiming space. She made choices that were hard and necessary. She sought support, found her voice in rooms full of strangers who understood without prying. She learned the language of boundaries, of safety plans, of hope that didn't demand perfection. Some days were heavy. Some days surprised her with light. On the hardest days, she remembered the sound of a calm voice cutting through chaos, and the feel of warm fur under her hand. He carried the stories he didn't tell, honoring them in quiet ways. Patience in lines, a hand held open, a willingness to stand when standing mattered. He believed heroism wasn't a switch you flipped. It was a habit you practiced. Once, months later, their paths crossed again by chance at a community event. Recognition passed between them like a nod across a crowded room. They didn't speak much. They didn't need to. Some connections don't require maintenance. They exist as markers, proof that the worst moments can also hold the seeds of the best. As the sun set that evening, children laughed, music drifted, and people gathered without fear. The German shepherd lay at his handler's feet, eyes half closed, content. The woman watched them from across the way, a small smile on her face. She wasn't defined by what had happened to her. She was defined by what she chose next. The cry that had once torn through a parking lot had been answered, and in answering it, something larger had shifted. It reminded everyone who witnessed it, near and far, that kindness is not passive, that humanity is a verb. Sometimes it looks like stepping forward. Sometimes it looks like staying. Always, it looks like choosing to care. And so the story settled into the world, not as a tale of violence, but as a testament to presence. A reminder that when one person refuses to look away, when a trained dog stands without barking, when a calm voice names a boundary, the ordinary can become transformative. Hope doesn't always arrive with fanfare. Sometimes it comes on a leash, at a steady pace, answering a cry with the simplest, bravest act of all, stepping in.